Hi, this is Greg at Best Choice Trailers. Today I'm going to take you for a walk around a Sure-Trac heavy-duty low-profile dump trailer. As shown, it's a 7x14, 14,000-pound GVW. It's got the optional gooseneck coupler as well as the telescopic hoist. I'm going to take you for a walk around the trailer, show you some of the standard features as well as some of the reasons why we like this particular model trailer. So again, it is a gooseneck coupler. It's got the 5-bolt hole adjustable, 2 set pins up front. It's got a sealed wire harness and of course your safety chains. So on the neck, a couple things Sure-Trac does. They've got a gusset plate and an underframe bridge. They also weld both sides of the neck. Jacks are dual 12Ks, bolt on. Notice 12K jacks also got grease zerks for serviceability. In the toolbox, we got an integrated Genius 110 volt charger. If you're not familiar with the 110 volt chargers, you'd simply plug house current in. It'll maintain your battery. This is a high capacity group 24 battery, meaning it's a 140 amp hour. For those not familiar, the amp hours are more important on a dump than the cranking amps. Again, the amp hours are basically saying at how many amps and how many minutes runtime you're going to get. Again, it's a deep cycle, so it's a deep discharge battery. Also notice these two wires here would be the trickle charge through your 7-pin 12-volt plug that's standard on most trucks nowadays. If you're not familiar, the accessory line on your truck's going to put out about 3.7 amp hours. So if you do the math, and this is a 140 amp hour battery, you've got give or take about 30 hours of charging off your truck to get it fully charged. Your other option, of course, would be the 110 volt charger. This you would have to plug into house current. Notice that is a 110 volt 1.1 amp charger. So you'd have quite a few hours of charging at this low capacity. Of course, a low amp hour charger would be good for your battery because it's charging at a reduced speed. This is a power up, gravity down system. You notice it's only got one in port, so it's basically taking fluid, pushing out, and then dumping it back in. If you had the second port there, it'd be a power up, power down. I suppose the reason Sure-Trac does a power up, gravity down on their scissor and telescopics would simply be that you're going to get a few more dump cycles as it's not going to run on the downward stroke. It is a lockable toolbox. You got the keys on the back side of the paddle lock. So there's a shot of your telescopic hoist. Telescopic hoists, of course, are what are on your dump trucks. Very powerful hoist. One big thing with these would be they're pointed vertical, so you very much achieve a higher efficiency than a dual ram or a scissor hoist. Scissor hoists and dual rams, of course, are both horizontal, trying to go vertical. A lot of inefficiency. Also notice, because it is a power up, gravity down, they put a safety chain that would lock in, so at the back of the trailer, whenever you load, to build in safety, it would never tip up. So Sure-Trac does put a different bulkhead on these than they do on the scissor and dual rams. This, of course, would be a straight vertical bulkhead. Bulkhead does a few things. One, of course, it gives you the extended side on the front that you can go ahead and drop a 1-foot 2x or whatever you want to put in the side of it to raise the sides. Standard's a 2-foot side. The bulkhead gives you a 3-foot. Also gives you an integrated spot for a tarp. And then we also like the bulkhead because at the back, it's going to allow the guy behind you to see you much better than if the lights were down below like many of the trailers. So again, very visible lights, sideboard extension, prep for a tarp, and then the bulkhead will keep mulch and your lighter items like sawdust and that from blowing out as easy. Sure-Trac also does an integrated body stiffener or a keyway into the side, so much like a house foundation. That's going to break the side up. It's going to give it a lot of additional strength so you don't have a solid 2-foot high panel. Speaking of the 2-foot panels, some in the industry are cutting the sides down to a 20-inch side. That's a common trend we've seen. Sure-Trac keeps with the 2-foot side. Now, one thing Sure-Trac does a little different, their load height is about 29 inches to the floor. Some in the industry are about 32. They're a little bit higher. 29 is a little bit more manageable as far as loading, but then it also, even with a 2-foot side, gives you about the same top of the sidewall height. Going down the side of the trailer, they have a spare tire mount, which is standard equipment. Also stake pockets. Their stake pockets, we noticed a few things. One, they're about double the height as most. They recess back in, give a lot of strength if a guy were to put a taller side on. Also notice they put them almost tight against the side rail. If somebody comes and bangs this with a bucket, it's not going to allow it to bend very far. Also, they have a rope ring type tie down going down the sides, that if you want to bungee your tarp kit down, there's provisions on the trailer for that. Also notice they have a full wrap tongue and then a 6-inch tube mainframe. They use tube on this, not channel. Thought behind that would be tube resists the torsional flexing that you would get going off-road and certainly down the road under load. So a very strong frame. Also notice they use a 4-inch tube bed frame, and then they silicone a lot on this trailer between your joints, between the bed and the bed frame, between the fender. Keep your acid rain and salt and whatnot out of those areas. Also, they do a side step. They've got expanded mesh on the step for a little bit of additional safety. Notice they use a double broke fender. Some guys see this on a spec sheet and don't know what it is, but a double broke fender simply has an extra bend in it, gives extra strength to the fender. Sure-Trac's using a 235/80 R16 load range E 10-ply radial tires standard. Also use the new forward adjusting brakes, and some guys aren't familiar with Easy Lube hubs. That would simply refer to that black cap. If you peel it off behind it, there's a grease zert for ease of serviceability. This trailer's got slipper spring suspension standard, and Sure-Trac also puts a grease zert, or what some would refer to in the industry as a wet bolt kit, standard on the trailer, so you can simply put a grease gun on and service that slipper spring suspension. Sure-Trac also does a couple nice features. This being a telescopic, it's going to be framed out a little bit different. We'll show you here in a second what that means, but right here is part of it. So telescopic, they assume is going to be a little heavier duty user, so they go ahead and put a piece of plate basically from the front side to the back side to give some extra strength to that main beam. Also notice they do a lot of little engineering detail that we like they put a gusset on the back side of that spring hanger because that's also a stress point. And then they also plate the hinge point a little bit heavier, put a grease zert on it. You also notice they cap the end of the tube. Coming back to the back of the trailer, grease zerts of course on the door. They use what would be referred to as a combo or a two-way gate. The gate of course would swing around like a barn door, but then over on the driver's side here, you can also set the depth and spread stone with it. They give you an extra retainer here to put your pin in when it's in use so that you don't use it. Also with the ramps, they give you pretty well full width adjustment. There's only about a 6-inch section there where you can't slide the ramps together. Bar lock for your door. Also notice they put a chain on there to hold your gate back. This gate pretty well wraps the whole way back to the fender. It's not one of the trailers that comes out to a 90 where we've seen some guys tweak doors. This one wraps pretty well the whole way back tight against. So the bed is a 10 gauge. It is a full seam weld on the floor. There's no stitch welding on this. Also standard would be 5 rings, not 4. They give you an extra ring up front and center. We're gonna take a look at the underside. So a telescopic hoist is going to be a little bit slower in stage 1. There's 3 stages. Of course, it's got the most girth in the first stage. It needs that to get you know, the most lift to get the load started. Soon we'll be hitting stage 2. Speed's going to pick up. Of course, at this point, you've got a moving load. Underneath this particular unit, you'll see they put an underbody tool tray standard. Okay, so that's all 3 stages. Pretty quick hoist. When it's empty, it's going to be about the same speed as your other hoist. When it's loaded, it'll probably be a little bit quicker, just because it won't stress and strain under load. Very strong hoist. So again, we said earlier about the plating that Sure-Trac does. They do this over 16 footers generally. Telescopic is the only trailer on a 14 foot that they would do that. The telescopic, its frame totally different. If you look at any of our pictures or videos of the scissor or dual ram, you'll see that there's a bulkhead going across. Essentially, that bulkhead is taking the stress and sending it to the side rails as the trailer basically goes from horizontal to vertical. On the telescopic, your load points are different, so the bulkhead, of course, is removed, and then they put the plating over the axle box area where your weight would be. Okay, on this particular unit, you also notice that's a 4-inch bed frame. These are 4-inch cross members. Many in the industry are going to use a 3-inch cross member. Sure-Trac goes with an upgraded 4-inch cross member on the bed. Okay, also take a look at the ramps. One thing we've noticed from different manufacturers we've carried over the years, we used to carry some manufacturers that had 1/4-inch plate on the end of the ramp, and we had a few customers that unfortunately bent them, and they basically bent them straight. So the way these are designed is very similar to the other style, only they use 1/2-inch plate on the end, and I've never had one of these bend. So the thought process is this retains, this bears weight on the back end of the trailer. With 1/2-inch plate, this won't bend. With 1/4-inch plate, over time, it certainly will. They are an undermount ramp, not a side mount ramp. And finally, probably one of the biggest single things that we like about Sure-Trac would be not that they're just powder coated. A lot of times guys get hung up on what finish paint it is. Is it powder coated? Is it acrylic? Is it urethane? We tend to find prep is more important than any of the above. And Sure-Trac does a phenomenal prep. First, they store all their steel inside from the minute it's unloaded. Secondly, they weld the product, and then they blast the finished product with steel grit, not sand grit. They phosphate wash, and then they do a zinc chromate for a sealer after they zinc, or after they phosphate wash. Very durable powder coat. Most of the history of Sure-Trac would be from their previous plant prior to the 2015 plant that they built, and the feedback on that plant was pretty exceptional, and this new plant after 2015 is even better than that. If you have any questions on this particular unit or any of our other trailers, feel free to give us a ring at 717-220-4220 or visit us on the web at bestchoicetrailers.com.